today I have with me best-selling author Dan Groat. Dan is the author of many books, but today I'd like to talk with him about his 2 books, Impressions and Monarchs and Mendicants. Thank you so much for talking with me today, Dan.
Oh, my pleasure. It sounds like it'll be fun.
Yes. First of all, I know you saw the video that I posted on Facebook today, so it's a little bit of a repeat, but I read Impressions first, and I was just blown away. I really don't read short stories that much, and when I read it, I was like, wow, I have got to give more credit to these short stories, because I kept wanting, I was like, one more story. All right, I'll get up and one more story.
Right.
and I don't know what prompted you, because you had written the novels before, so what prompted you to want to go to short stories?
I had read a few just to break up my reading, and then I started seeing things online about flash fiction and really, really short stuff, and I just got curious, and during the summer, wandering around outside and doing chores outside, I would just focus on an idea or a story, and later that day I would write it down, and I did that every day or two for a few months, and decided I had enough and put it into a book, but a lot of people have said it's tougher than writing novels. I don't have the experience to really know, but it is tough in a short amount of space to get in enough things of interest without boring people with too much character, and then most of it. That's another reason I started doing it, because I thought I could do short stories and focus more on events, more on plot, because my novels are sometimes weaker on plot than characterization, I've been told. And I thought, well, maybe that's a way to change my focus. So that was the intention when I started doing short stories.
Well, first of all, I can't believe anybody could say that about your plot, because after reading, I only read one of your novels, Monarchs and Mendicants, and I couldn't stop reading it. So I don't know how anybody could say that. But
That's great to hear. It's taken me, of course, I've only been writing 3 or 4 years, and it's taken me a long time to thicken my skin. You get all kinds of comments, and that's fair. And I do try to learn, and I do learn more from the negative ones, but of course, I enjoy the positive ones. I have a few that brought tears to my eyes, and that's reward enough.
Oh, I bet. And I wanted to ask you, are these self-published?
They are. Yes.
I thought so. Even though I couldn't tell from reading them, of course, but then when I went to go look to see who published them, I was like, wow, you self-published these. And it was very interesting. I found that out this morning while I'm reading a book, because I'm going to be interviewing a woman tomorrow who is helps people self-publish. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So if I had been reading her stuff, I probably wouldn't have looked for yours. And, it's a very interesting thing in these days, because people can do that. You just decide, I'm going to just go out and do it myself, and some of the best books I've read are self-published. So
and there's positive and negative to that. And one thing, mainly due to Amazon, but other companies now too, they've opened up publishing to anyone. They've made it easy enough, affordable enough that anyone can do it. That's great. That's wonderful. The flip side is, when you put something out there, you're competing with 10 times the number of books that you might have 15 years ago. because the market is just flooded. So as one author I corresponded with said, he had written one book, and he said it still remains lost in the abyss of Amazon. So
right.
you fight. If you do marketing, you fight to keep from from having your book buried in that abyss. But at the same time, a lot of people would never have produced and put the book out there had it not been for Amazon. So,
well, and social media helps too, because I found you on LinkedIn, and I looked. I think you were promoting Impressions, so I bought it right away and I was like, wow, this is so good. And then I went to Amazon, bought your other three other books that were on there, and just for our talk today, because I was like, well, I want to read more of what he wrote. So I think social media also helps with
absolutely,
with the Amazon, because I think if you just did Amazon, I could see how it would get lost in, but we have so many other, ways of finding authors, and that's what made me want to do this channel, was because I wanted to talk to not just popular authors. I want to talk to authors that are out there that have written fantastic books that I'm not going to walk into Barnes & Noble and see, I see the top 10 that are listed there from very, very popular, and I'll go and try to read the first 3 chapters, and I'm already like, I'm bored, and I put it back. But then I read other people, not that they don't, but that's what this woman that I'm interviewing tomorrow was talking about, is like they get pushed. Once you've written one top 10 New York Times bestseller, your other books will get pushed, whether they're as good as or not as good as. They get the marketing and everything. So, that's just the way of the world. But anyway, I just thought it was fascinating when I saw that you were self-published, and I did not know that.
The first book I wrote, I did do some peddling of the concept to agents and to publishers, and I got some nibbles, I got some reads, and I even got some discussions, but nothing ever happened, and I went ahead and published it myself. And once I had that process in me, then I just continued doing it, and I really haven't gone back and tried to get an agent or a house to get behind me, although the part I would love would be some help with the marketing, because the social media aspect, the promotions you do, all of that takes a lot of time. Part of that time is learning how to do it if you're not in that field, and that in that respect, a publisher would be great help, even though nowadays they still expect you, the author, to do some of that on your own. But I wouldn't mind the help.
Yeah, and, I find that even with my YouTube channel, when I started doing this, I just lined up interviews and did them, and I don't do very much marketing with them. I put them out there on social media, but I don't do the things I know, because it takes away from what I'm trying to do.
Exactly.
And I think that probably is for authors too. It's like, I want to do these interviews, I want to read their books. That's what I want to do. I don't want to spend, 5 of my hours every day trying to figure out how to get this out, even though that would be nice. but I'm trying to do it in that it'll eventually, just like you, it's like, just keep doing what we do, and then, if I just keep promoting people, and, it's fun for me to promote people, and that's what and it's fun for you to write your books, and I want you to write your books.
Yeah. And you say to yourself, well, I'm going to get, in my case, I'm going to get back to writing, because I don't have a schedule. I'm not a patterned writer. I just do it when I do it. I may go weeks without writing anything. I may write 5 or 6 hours a day every day for 20 days in a row, and then stop for a month. I just do it as I feel it. And in between those times now, the marketing, the promotion fills that time. It's taking part of your creativity, and there is some satisfaction in that because, you give birth to the words. You want them to meet as many people as they can. You want them out there in the world. You want to see the response, and whether you dream about being an Oprah chosen book or not, after the initial, I want to see if I can do this, after that's passed and you say, well, I did it, then you want people to read it. You want people to pick it up, and you want the feedback, and you want people to say that mattered to me. And it's a big process, and a lot of learning has gone on for me. The writing part just happens, but the marketing part I've had to learn, still learning.
Yes, exactly. Well, I always said that when I started this, I wanted to be the Oprah on YouTube of promoting books. So,
exactly.
If we go by that way, then you kind of have, done it. We can look at it that way, because I wanted to get, she picks a book and it becomes, number one, like instantly. So I was like, I want to do that. I want to be that person,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, so Monarchs and Mendicants, you wrote that in what year? I'm looking because I know Impressions was written after it, right?
Yeah.
2014.
Monarchs in 14 I wrote.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that the book right before your short story book?
It was. That was the third one. It is actually the kickoff to a series that character Gifford Ulrich in Monarchs will return in my next book.
Oh yes, I love him.
And then I have a third book in that series. Actually, the second book in the series, called Pianos and Penance, is finished. It has been sitting around for about 6 months marinating, and in that time, I've done a few rewrites, and in that time I've also decided to add something to the ending, but it is mainly done. It's months away from coming out.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome. That's the third, wait. And then the fourth, or actually that's the second. The third in that series has also been started. So that is a repeating character that I am going to stay with for a while, I think.
Well, I have to tell you, I love books that do that. Now, I didn't know that was going to happen, but I do love, what you want to call a series book when they stick to that character.
Right.
And so, I told you I love him. I mean, I grew to love him so much by the end of the book. How did you create him? Like, was there a role model for him, or was he totally like just in your brain and something you had to put down?
So, some of all of that. He's as every character that I've ever written. He's a little bit me. He is also a mix of some things I saw in movies and read about Navy SEALs. The Lone Survivor book and movie, for instance. And I became interested in the extreme commitment that they make to survive the training, not to speak of the missions that they go on, but then at the same time, not necessarily just Navy SEALs, but the damage that what they see in battle can do to them, and how many vets we have wandering around dealing with those kinds of things. So, he became a mix of some of my personality, people I had read about and seen in movies that were servicemen, and then people that at times I had wanted to be. You know, you end up writing a character and you realize, hey, this is partly me. I don't want it to be very much me. And then later you say, hey, this is partly who I wanted to be. And some of it's, maybe a lot of it's not intended. You know, the character kind of grows through the pages like anybody does in their life, and develops a little on their own. Is kind of a magical thing to me.
Absolutely. And I don't know if I, became so attached to him. I do have a son. Well, I have two sons in the service, but my one son in the Army, he was over in Iraq. He was one of the last missions over there. And when he came back, there was a significant change in him. My other son, not so much, but my second son, there was a significant change. And so I related to what he went through, even though it's not exactly what he went through.
Sure.
But
there are commonalities in all of them. Yeah.
There are commonalities, but then I found myself, like, in a weird way, for everything that we have, what I related to him is like how he took strength in the things he didn't have, and even though he wanted more, it's not like he didn't want more, but he was okay. He was okay with what he did. He was okay with, and that isolating, it's like, don't you ever just, sometimes want to isolate like he did? Like, I just, I have 6 children. I have 7 grandchildren. But I was like caught up in his isolation, like, a lot. I got really, in the way you described it, and, taking care of me, like, I think that we take care of everybody. And he was like, I just need to take care of me. And even though he learns by the end of the book how to take care of other people, I was just, I don't know. In the beginning, that's what really hooked me into a lot of what, and what you brought out in him. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, good. And that is exactly his character's arc in the book, is going from solitude to being able to allow an occasional person into his world and to open up a little bit. And the nice thing about writing a series that character arc that pretty much consumes one book can continue, and in my case does continue in the following books. He continues, like we all do every day. He continues to grow. He continues to be more a social being, and that arc just carries over into the other books, and that part of it is nice. They talk about writing a series is great for marketing because you can establish a character, you can establish a brand, you can bring people back to that same character if they enjoyed the first book, and then you can build upon all of that, and that's all very true. So to be purely honest, that was the reason that got me to thinking about repetition of that character, although when I wrote Monarchs, I didn't intend it in the beginning to be the first of a series. I just knew that someday I would write a series. And towards the end of that book, there had been a little development in his personality, but there was a lot remaining. So it seemed natural that, okay, he's got plenty of room for growth, and that could be another book. That could be several more books. And like I said, I've got definitely 2 more on the stove right now. So we'll see.
And did you get such positive reactions to him too? Like, you became very attached to him, and everybody else loved him. Did that help in your wanting to?
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of great feedback on the book. There were now he is not only because I am his God. I created him. That, and I don't mean that to be sacrilege when I say it, but he is. I gave birth to him. He is my child. But he's also close to me because if I allow myself to be, I am that loner. I am that solitary person who can feel in his head that he is as independent as is possible for a human being, but at the same time, I'm married. I love my wife. I love our relationship, but I grew up being a loner and becoming comfortable with that, and there were people who don't understand that in the character, and there were people in some of the feedback that said, I just don't get a guy, even if he's on the streets, shutting himself off that much. Well, that in the story was as much PTSD as it was personality. Of course, in me, it was purely the personality I grew up with, no PTSD involved.
Right. Right.
But it's easy to be too sensitive. Like I said, I've learned to deal with feedback and to relish it, good or bad, and all of it helps. But my goodness, these people are so dear to you. They've lived in you, and then you threw them out into the world. You don't want them to get beat up. Of course, Gifford can take care of himself, so he'll be fine.
He'll be fine, right? I mean, that's and I find the part that I related to was I think when we experience loss. I know when my mom died, the first reaction is to be alone, to isolate. Even though I did have a lot of children around me, and I did, but I felt like I was going through it alone.
Yes.
Like my experience, I was very alone, and I didn't really want to talk about it. Just like he didn't want to talk about his.
Right.
It took a long time for him to want to talk about his loss, and which reminds me about the father. I hope you don't mind me asking, but are you Catholic?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
and that religion played a big part in my first book that we're not talking about today, but I will be excited to talk about in the future. I just find it valuable as a good source of tradition and foundation for a book, for a character to have a well-known, established belief in their system, and for that, in my first book and in Monarchs 2, I threw in the Catholic religion because it fills some of those needs, I think.
Yeah, I loved their relationship. I loved how it grew, how the turn, like from the beginning to the end of the book. I loved the turn that it made, and, I became so attached to him, and I have to tell you that, I feared for his life all the time. So I found as I was reading, like, please don't let anything happen to the father. Please don't let anything happen to the father.
Yeah, and it's funny, I got attached to him, too, even though I never had a priest. I wasn't a part of that religion, but he became the flip side of the mentor that Stephen tried to be for Gifford. Even though Stephen was a street mentor, and the father was a little ethereal, and of course spiritual mentor. It was a balance of what maybe Gifford needed and maybe what he was looking for, because that that is definitely, and it's not hidden in the book, that is one of the underlying themes about wants and needs in your life. What do you truly want? What do you truly need? In modern life, do you know the difference? Do you feel that you have the proper value placed on each one of those? You know, it's a big part of what Stephen kept pounding at Gifford. Wants and needs, and how you deal with your own life and fitting those wants and needs into their proper places. And so the father was part of that story. The need the father was trying to fulfill was not only mentoring for life steps and goals, but the spiritual side, and Stephen was mainly trying to get Gifford to open up a little bit and return to the world that Afghanistan had closed him off from.
And what I thought was really awesome about it too was that Gifford didn't have a father, correct? That was
right.
I'm trying to remember,
but
he didn't have.
Never knew him.
Never knew him, and so then so the father comes in and you call him father, and then it's like it's probably something he's always needed was a father. He didn't have that, growing up. Yeah. So I loved how, that kind of fit into, he probably didn't even know he needed, you know what I mean? That he didn't, it doesn't say that he ever longed for it, but it was one of those things like, I didn't even realize what he needed, kind of, he gets this mentor that he calls father and is like a father figure to him,
Yeah,
so.
You get it. You get it.
Oh my gosh.
I received a review a month or two ago on Impressions, and it gave me, like I said, you certainly try to get reviews, and all the advice is get as many reviews as you can, good or bad. They all help. They all help market. They all help get your name and your book's name out there. And I got a review, and that was my initial and never-ending impression of the review. He gets it. He got all of it. He felt it, and that's your goal. Your target audience is not going to be the entire world, but you want people to get it. You want people to get as much of it as they can. And I had only done it 2 other times in my 3 or 4 years of writing. I emailed him and I said, thank you for the review. You got it, and that touches me, and that fulfills me, and I appreciate it. And he emailed me back, and he said, I am an American living in Java, Indonesia, and I teach English literature to people who have English as their second language, and we are using your book Impressions in my class. And I fell over again. I emailed him back and I said, oh man, I would talk to you every day. you make me feel so good, golly.
Well, and that's how I felt when I read it, because I was brought to you by Impressions, which was amazing. But there I am on the plane and I'm like, okay, I had it on my Kindle. I'm like, I'll just download it. And when I got off, I was like, it changed me. Like, this book changed the way I felt. It just did. I couldn't stop thinking about it all day. Like, I was like, oh my God, and I get to talk to him tomorrow. Like, how amazing is this, So
that is, it's wonderful to hear. I mean, that's, I don't just write for compliments, but like I said, you want people to get it. You want people to scoop down below the surface a little bit and come back up and say, yeah, I can see that, I can feel that, I get it, and that's the whole thing.
Well, and I kept thinking, oh my God, this guy, like, you are an author. Like, to me, there was so much meat in this. I was like, he is an amazing author. You know, I can't say enough about that. But anyway, I could go on and on about, you know, complimenting you.
Well, don't leave it to me to stop you. I certainly wouldn't.
Oh my goodness. But I was wondering, okay, so when I was reading it, I kept thinking, Mendicant, what is that? And I didn't stop reading to look it up. So this morning I looked it up and I was like, oh, how brilliant was that? Like, how did you, the title is amazing. I read the book and then I still didn't understand because I didn't know what it was. But then when I found out that it was another word for the term beggar, I was like, that was just, I mean, did you think, I mean, okay, it's not an everyday word in my vocabulary, but it.
Yeah,
but
and it wasn't. No, it wasn't in mine either. Actually, the working title of the book was Kings and Beggars. And then, even though it is my understanding and my belief that titles cannot be copyrighted, and if I wanted to write a book and call it War and Peace, there's nothing legally that would stop me. But I do research characters' names and titles and fictional settings and the names that I use to make sure that they don't appear in other things. And Kings and Beggars, I don't even know now if it was a book, but it was definitely a movie. And I thought, well, I don't want to do that. And my first book, A Punctual Paymaster, my second book, An Enigmatic Escape, shows that I was a little bit hung up on alliteration in those titles, repetitive first letters. And then I thought, well, maybe I can do that for Kings and Beggars. And then I came up with Monarchs. And actually, I just did a search on M words that might be appropriate, and I found the perfect one.
Well, that's another thing that's just genius, because that's what I was thinking when I saw, when I got your other books, and I was like, oh, he really likes, like, that is, it's pleasing to your senses. You know what I mean?
It is to mine. It certainly is to mine. That's why I do it, and then it set up a pattern, and I fought with myself over the title of Impressions because I didn't make it titled Imminent Impressions or Imaginary Impression. I didn't alliterate the title, but I was happy with the one-word title because it was an intention of the book to kind of solidify that word. But and I'm remaining hung up on alliteration, like I said.
With pianos and
penance and
penance, yes.
Rivers and Rivals will be the third Gifford book, and set around still in St. Louis, which is near where I live. And Rivers and Rivals will be about two families who became rich using the rivers in and around St. Louis from the 19th century all the way up to the present. Of course, the Mississippi runs through St. Louis, and the Missouri River meets the Mississippi just north of St. Louis. So that city stays in all of the Gifford books, and of course the alliteration keeps popping up. The book that I have planned for in between those two serial books gets away from the alliteration, though. That's going to be a book of essays, and I'm calling it King of the Blind. So that's another step away from alliteration.
Did the city that this took place in, Benoit, is that fictional or is that a city?
It is fictional. St. Louis is divided into neighborhoods, and everybody who lives there, as they cross one street into another area, they know what neighborhoods they're in, and it was based on an actual area of St. Louis, but it is not called Benoit. So the name is fictional. The background of it is not.
Okay, that's what I was wondering because I'm not familiar. I've been to St. Louis though. I have to say I drove through it. I might have driven through it twice actually on my way somewhere, but
I thought you were going to say you got lost and you had to double back.
No, I'm just in different parts of my life. So, like I remember, driving through there and having pictures, but I never spent any amount of time there. So there were things I didn't know, but things that I learned too, so which was awesome too. But anyway, well, we will definitely talk about your other two books. I think that's everything I can think of, and now I know what you're doing for the future, so I'm ecstatic about that.
Oh, well, I am ecstatic about the books and the chance to talk about them again with you. That would be neat.
Okay, well, I will definitely email you. We will set up a time, and we can do this again. And just thank you so much for talking with me about this. And I'm happy that you keep writing. Keep writing, and I'll keep reading.
Thank you. I am putting you as Vice President of Marketing. You've been so nice.
Okay. Thank you so much, and have a great day. We'll talk soon.
You too, Michelle. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.